Furious finishes to the early games yesterday, the best we've seen in the NFL in 2 years, but these, of course, are not normal circumstances, and you don't need us to explain the reasons why. We've been talking all morning long, trying to find a balance in our conversation between the action that has taken place on the field, and we need to get into some of the action that took place in boardrooms, trade rooms, conference calls, wherever it is these deals get done in the NBA yesterday, and then, of course, all the events surrounding the President of the United States and his words about the world of sports, both football and basketball. Jalen Rose is here to provide insight into all of that and much more. Good morning, Jalen.
Good morning, gentlemen.
So you have to provide insight, he said.
Absolutely. Got to give the people what they want.
Right.
That's the goal. Jalen, a newly minted member of the State of Michigan's Hall of Fame.
That's pretty impressive.
That on Twitter.
Yes,
Congratulations.
Appreciate the love.
Nice job. Nice job out of you.
That's for the work that you've done with your school there as much as it is anything else. Okay, let's start with some of the basketball because we haven't done it at all this morning, and so let's get a little insight into that, and then we'll work our way towards other matters. Let's start with Carmelo Anthony because it feels like we waited forever for that trade to take place, and then considering all of the other circumstances that were going on Saturday when the president was tweeting at the Warriors that they were uninvited to the White House, it almost became as though the trade of a future Hall of Famer became like secondary news, and for understandable reasons. But as we look at all the circumstances here, Carmelo on Oklahoma City, you put him together with George and with Russell Westbrook. Where in your mind does that put the Thunder right now in the pecking order in the NBA's Western Conference?
With Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double and winning MVP, the Oklahoma City Thunder, though recently they lost KD and obviously they lost James Harden, were still a playoff team. But once they got there, they were clearly overmatched because he didn't have the supporting cast to take them to the next level. Adding these two players and still keeping the base of their roster in tow, in particular Adams, I think they're a top 4 team in the Western Conference. I truly do. Paul George is going to have a lot to prove because while in Indiana he became an all-star player, played at an all-NBA level. It's going to be his second year off a horrific injury that he's overcome. I think that team is going to be so exciting to watch. How about Sam Presti, their general manager?
Yeah.
How he continues to remix his roster, overcome adversity, ignore what Kevin Durant had to say on his burner Twitter account, and still find ways to make mega deals happen and bringing Carmelo Anthony to town is just that.
The other side of that, as I look at it, you see Kyrie going to Boston. You know, what went on there? Then you see Chris Paul, obviously, to Houston, and George to Oklahoma City now where Carmelo goes, and then Dwayne Wade. All that being said, the one constant, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we can change is, but Golden State's still the best team, and nobody, while they look better to beat them, is going to beat them. So it almost seems like while most of this movement, we were like, wow, look at this future Hall of Famer moving here, and this star moving here, and this guy moving here. Where are we? Cleveland, Golden State, back in the finals again. Would you agree?
I agree, but the NBA's on fire right now.
I agree with that.
And if they were at a stoplight with the NFL, the NBA pulled off in a Lamborghini while the NFL is driving a minivan. Like, the NBA is that deal. And I agree with you, Golick. While the Golden State Warriors, when they have 4 All-Stars on their team, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson are the favorites, the Cleveland Cavaliers still have LeBron James and basically a retooled roster that's going to make them the class of the Eastern Conference. Man, the league still has intrigue, though. When you have the remote control in your hand, it's like, wow, Boston has Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. Houston has CP3 and James Harden. We just talked about the deal that Oklahoma City was able to capture. There's so much intrigue going on in the league. It's going to be fantastic to watch.
Is the other, again, with that, because I agree with you, completely agree with you, but what about also, don't you almost expect next year Chris Paul will be on another team, Paul George will be on another team, maybe Carmelo, maybe even LeBron, way everybody's talking that the whole thing's going to rearrange again?
It could, but as you guys know, sports truly happens in dog years. There's so many things that can take place over the next 12 months that it's hard to quantify what truly will take place. And there's still a part of me, while I was one of the first people to come out and not only talk about Cantor going to the Knicks, but also talk about LeBron possibly leaving Cleveland, that's not necessarily a foregone conclusion because I don't know if he wants those Western Conference problems. If you truly look at what's taking place in the West from top to bottom, it's a gauntlet to get out of there. He's owned the Eastern Conference 7 straight years. So worst case scenario, he knows that he's going to get to the conference finals, maybe the NBA finals, and at that point, anything can happen when you're the best player in the game.
All right, so I want to go back to the first thing you said, which is this makes OKC a top 4 team in the Western Conference. If they can defend, I'm not sure it doesn't make them the second best team in the Western Conference. I mean, Westbrook, I believe, regardless of what anybody's record was, when KD was there, they were the second best team in the conference. They had the best chance to beat Golden State, and they had them on the ropes, as has been covered a million times, 3-1 up in that series and didn't get it done, and KD goes. I understand you're putting Houston and San Antonio, obviously, are the 2 teams you're talking about ahead of them right now. And I know Houston, with the way they play and adding Chris Paul, which I think will be a nice addition. But if you've got George on the perimeter right now to go around. No one stops Kevin Durant, but someone out there who plays as good a defense out there with his size and his length and everything else as he does. Carmelo is another place to go get buckets anytime you want them. And Westbrook is Westbrook. If they maybe a little tinkering here or there, they continue to put stuff around. They got the big in the middle. I think if you're looking at one of those teams and say, which one of them would you give up the best puncher's chance against Golden State in a 7-game series, I think I would take Oklahoma City.
I'm rolling with you. Based on the balance you just talked about, Houston still has to figure out what they're going to do at the power forward and center position consistently to get production and, more importantly, defense once the playoffs come. San Antonio Spurs, they have Kawhi Leonard and Coach Pop. Those are 2 things we know that they're going to get 50 to 55 wins just waking up in the morning.
Right.
Now, once they get to the playoffs, is LaMarcus Aldridge and whoever else that plays up front going to consistently get them productivity? But I totally agree with you and appreciate how OKC has continued to reinvent itself, and now all of a sudden they're a contending type team. And I appreciate that level of balance, though the Golden State Warriors and the Cavs have become outliers in their conference, that we now have an NBA.
Okay, let's go back to something that's really important there. I don't care if Oklahoma City finishes second, because Golden State's still the cream of the crop there, and they're going to win. You said you don't think it's a foregone conclusion now LeBron is leaving Cleveland. I've been saying this forever now, that why would he go to the West? The whole notion of him playing with his banana boat friends just so he can play with his banana boat friends. Last I checked, he likes the history, and he likes the fact he's going to the finals every single year. Why would he leave Cleveland?
And also, if you're LeBron James, you got to look at it like this. The Cleveland Cavaliers have a squad. I think what gets lost is we want to dumb down the journey and talk about the fast forward to the finals, and people haven't truly looked at the Cleveland Cavaliers roster. They just added Isaiah Thomas. When he comes back from a hip injury, for those who haven't been paying attention, he almost averaged 30 points last year.
Yeah.
Okay, they still have JR at the shooting guard position, a knockdown 3-point shooter. They still re-signed Kyle Korver. They have Tristan inside. They brought along Derrick Rose. They still have Kevin Love, who gets overlooked in this entire dynamic. I think he's going to be close to an 18-11 guy this season. So when you put that with LeBron James and you have all of the things he has going for himself, why give that up unless you're going to be on a super team? So if LeBron leaves, this is what you pay attention to. Where's the next super team? Mm-hmm. Is an all-star level player, like you mentioned, that isn't long-term with this team, now going to go to a team, say the Los Angeles Lakers? You said Paul George. Russell Westbrook hasn't signed. What's going to happen with DeMarcus Cousins? If these players now shake loose to one of those teams, then follow the tea leaves and LeBron possibly ends up there. But if he's not playing for a super team, he's not bouncing.
Couple of quick thoughts on that. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Jalen Rose is with us, our guest on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We'll get to a million other things coming up. But you mentioned Sam Presti, the job he's done in Oklahoma City. You look at the trades of big stars and all the different things that have happened. He has managed to turn in the last month or whatever it was, 6 weeks. He has managed to turn Doug McDermott, Enes Kanter, Victor Oladipo, and Arvydas Sabonis' son into Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. That's what he did. So that is remarkable what he's done in OKC. If they're hanging on by a thread, he's not going down without a fight. So I give him all the credit in the world. The other piece in this is, oh, by the way, Dwayne Wade is a free agent now. For those of you waking up this morning and hadn't heard the news, Wade works out a buyout with the Bulls. He leaves $8 million on the table, and he goes where he wants. Does he go to Cleveland and play with his longtime good friend LeBron? Does he go to Oklahoma City? Could Dwayne Wade at this stage, at 35 years old, with all the moxie and the savvy and the skill he still has, could he be one who could tilt the bounds of power a little bit in the West based upon where he goes?
Any contending team would want Dwayne Wade on their roster, a 3-time champion. As you noted, it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to get bought out by the Chicago Bulls because they're going in different directions at this point. But the one thing no one isn't discussing is that all of the teams you just described, if he signs with those squads, he's going to be a substitute. He won't be a starter anymore. And so you have to look at when he goes to a squad, if he's now going to be that boost off the bench that they really need. He could provide that in OKC, which on paper, I would like him to go there just because it's more sexy when you cover in the game. But the reality of it is he'll be in Cleveland with his good friend LeBron James. And how things come full circle, LeBron actually left Miami, looked at Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and said, you know what? Our time of winning championships have probably ended, so I'm going to go to Cleveland and play with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Now come full circle, Dwayne Wade does, in my opinion, join the Cleveland Cavaliers.
How does a player deal with that? A guy who's been a star, a Hall of Famer, starter his whole career, and all of a sudden say you're relegated to coming off the bench and we need you to be that spark? How does that happen?
Longevity comes with reinventing yourself. Look at an artist like Jay-Z or Puffy or players that played a long time in whatever sport or career endeavor. You have to humble yourself, accept a different role, but also be real that you can still be productive at what you're being asked to do and not allow your ego to say, I'm only going to go to a team that makes me a starter. Especially at this point of his career, you don't want to put those miles on your body. You still want to be fairly fresh once the playoffs come. And he understands getting bought out by the Bulls gives him a new lease on life. And I think that ends up being a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
All right, we are Mike and Mike, and Jalen Rose is here in our studio. He is giving us the Straight Talk, which is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I don't remember exactly what day you said it, but I remember when you said it. Some months ago. I believe it was shortly after the inauguration of President Trump, but I don't recall exactly when you said it.
I'll tell you when I said.
When did you say it?
NBA and NFL players will deny the opportunity to attend the White House under the Trump presidency. And I took a lot of crap for it. And you guys know how this industry works. Sometimes it's good when you're breaking news and you become a headline, and sometimes it isn't. And that was one of those days where people was questioning what I had to say about the topic. It was November of 2016 when I said it. Now you fast forward, it's actually happening right in front of us.
And then, so fast forward to this past Saturday.
Yes.
And I can't find the tweet now. I'm going through it and through his Twitter feed because there's a million things that he tweeted about, and a lot of them about the flag, and then there's North Korea here and Little Rocket Man and all sorts of other things. And where is the one about Steph Curry? I'm having time. Excuse me, I should have had this ready to go here. Here it is. Donald J. Trump tweeted, going to the White House.